Welcome back to another episode of the Life's Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Quinn Jackson, the Life's Playbook podcast. This is episode 4 of season 2. That's right, my show has been out for 2 seasons now, 1 month, and coming up on 2 months. It will be 2 months on the 22nd. So, with that being said, it is the off-season officially. It's officially the off-season. The Super Bowl was this past week. The Eagles end up winning it. And with the Super Bowl being over, that means it is officially off season. And every team is now 0-0. The records are now 0-0. So with that being the off season, I thought it was only appropriate to come on here and talk about my Cleveland Browns. Yes, my Cleveland Browns. If you haven't noticed, I'm a Browns fan, pretty open about it. Born and raised Cleveland Browns fan. There are moments where I'm proud of the team, and there are moments where I'm not proud of the team. But with that being said, with it being the offseason, I thought it was only appropriate I'd come on here and talk about my Cleveland Browns, some of the problems that I think we should really be focusing on, what those problems are, and how we go about fixing those problems, as well as some of the general needs for every single team in the AFC North. So with that being said, let's get into today's episode. And as always, the game never ends here at the Life's Playbook podcast. Let's get into today's episode. Let's talk about the Cleveland Browns. Because all my Cleveland Browns fans, please stand up. Please stand up. Can all the Cleveland Browns fans please stand up? Because we got to talk about some of the problems. Now, the problems that I'm going to, raise here are problems that I think are the big red flags that we need to fix. They might not be, some of these problems that I bring up might not be the biggest issue in some Browns fans' eyes. Some Browns fans might agree with me on this. And if you are one of those Browns fans that watches this video, please comment below on what you think the problems are and where we should, our key point of focus should be on fixing. But when I watched the Cleveland Browns last year in 2023 and this past 2024 season now, I've watched all the games every Sunday and we've lost every game. The Cleveland Browns went 3-14, if I'm not mistaken. Terrible, because the previous year we were in the wild card round. We lost to the Texans, obviously. That was C.J. Stroud's rookie season. But we still made the playoffs nonetheless, despite having a banged-up roster and, a 40-year-old quarterback in Joe Flacco. We still made the playoffs. And that was a great season, I would say. I think many Browns fans would agree that was a good season, given what it was, and given the roster that we had. And then, all of a sudden, we take a huge step backwards from that season, and we go 3-14. So, here are some of the biggest problems that I think, as a Browns fan, here are some of the biggest problems that I'm going to raise right now and how I think we should go about fixing these problems. So number 1, the first problem that I see with the Cleveland Browns upon watching the 2024 season, the first biggest problem that I see is obviously the quarterback problem. The Browns are historically bad when it comes to drafting and trading for quarterbacks. Quarterbacks have not been our strong suit ever since, the big move. And all Browns fans know the big move that I'm talking about. But we have been historically bad. I believe we've gone through like 40 different quarterbacks these past couple of decades, and none of them have really found their footing in Cleveland. Obviously, the best candidate on that huge list is Baker Mayfield, and we know what happened to Baker. And till this day, it still shocks myself, and it still shocks many of us that Baker was arguably the best candidate on that list, and we got rid of him for another candidate who leads into my next problem. Well, he's not the next problem, but he is a sub-problem to the first problem, which is the quarterback problem, Deshaun Watson. He's a sub-problem to the first problem, which is quarterback purgatory, quarterback problems. That's the first problem. The second problem that I noticed upon watching the Cleveland Browns is the offensive line. Now, I'm not an offensive line nerd, but I do know when there are problems on the offensive line. I know all the positions on the offensive line, and I know the guys that are on that offensive line. And this offensive line that we have is aging. They're old, some of them, and they are injury prone. That's definitely a position that needs to be looked at. I think, and I'll get to my how we fix that problem in a little bit. But the offensive line is a problem that the Cleveland Browns need to, I think, address. Again, all of the problems that I am addressing right now might not be the same problems that other Cleveland Browns see or other Cleveland Browns fans think are a big focus. But I'm positive we can all agree as Browns fans that the number one is a huge problem. Problem number one is huge. Problem number two is the offensive line. Problem number three is running backs. The run game, the Cleveland Browns, the one thing that I will say that the Cleveland Browns are historically good at doing is running the football. And they are historically good at drafting and trading for running backs. I will say that. And when we have a good run game, we can go far. We can go places. We saw it in 2020 and we saw it in 2023. When we had a healthy Nick Chubb and we had a healthy offensive line, we got stuff done and we could make the playoffs. You know, that's something that we as Browns fans and as an organization can take pride in. We have a great running game, arguably the best running game when healthy in the AFC North. We have the best run game when fully healthy in the AFC North. So that's the third problem. The running situation, running backs, as of recently, our running backs have been heavily plagued with injuries, and that has been a huge problem to the franchise because, again, a franchise that is historically, known for having great running backs and having a great offensive line and great running game, when your linemen are hurt and your running backs are hurt, your strength and power kind of, diminishes. I'm not saying that our passing game is weak. I do think we could go out and get somebody to help Jerry Jeudy and kind of be that proven wide receiver too. Elijah Moore, he's not really reliable, and Tillman, he's more of a wide receiver 3. So I do think we should go out and get maybe one more receiver to kind of help with that pass game and help Jerry Jeudy. But the pass game is the pass game, but the running game for the Browns is really where we strive. It's where we thrive. So, again, if our running backs are always injury prone and our offensive line is old and injury prone, our strength in the franchise really diminishes. And that leads into the fourth problem. The fourth and final problem that I see when watching the Cleveland Browns is really the management in general. The management and how we got here in the first place is the fourth and final problem that I noticed and that I can take away upon reflecting on the 2024 Cleveland Browns season. So, again, all of the problems that I raised might not be the same amongst all Cleveland Browns fans. Some of us might have different problems than others, and some of us might think that certain problems need to be addressed way more and fixed way more than others. And that's all fine and dandy because I will most likely agree with any other Cleveland Browns fan that comments what they think is a bigger problem and how they think we should go about fixing it. So I'm just saying those are my 4 problems, in my opinion, that I think that I can take away from the 2024 season. So, with that being said, let's talk about how we as an organization, how the Cleveland Browns, in my opinion, how I think we can fix all 4 of these problems. Let's start with problem number 1. Well, obviously the quarterback history is a huge red flag in the organization. It's been a red flag for decades. There's kind of no real fix to this problem. It all kind of starts with management, but, we traded I said earlier in the beginning of the video that Baker Mayfield was arguably the best candidate that we've had for a long while, and even he had his problems. I'm not going to lie and say that he was the best quarterback we've ever seen ever, because he had problems too, and when we had Baker, there were some rough years that we had with him. But 2020 was really when Baker was starting to get things going in Cleveland. That was really when he was starting to make his name in the sand in Cleveland. And right at that moment, when he was starting to make his name in the sand, we decided to get rid of him and go get Deshaun Watson. Now, Deshaun Watson, prior to, recent years, he was a star player. He led the Texans to the playoffs in 2019. He was arguably heading up the mountain of his prime. He was peaking at his prime when we came in and thought he would be the right step in the right direction. And at the time, I thought he was going to be the right step at the right direction. Well, we know that as of recent, he's faced a lot of allegations. He's missed a lot of time on the field. His tendon has really been a problem. His Achilles has really been a problem. His injury history is starting to grow. So, how do we fix this quarterback problem? Now, right now, the situation in the Browns quarterback room is Jameis is a free agent, so we don't even know if Jameis Winston is going to stay with the Browns. He's probably not, because he's voiced his opinion many times. He thinks he's worthy enough to start. He wants to go to an organization that can not only win, that is ready to win, but he also wants to be a starter in that organization. And I'm just going to say this to Jameis Winston. You go do that. I think you're a fun guy to have in the locker room. You're a fun guy to watch. I appreciate your service. You won us games, big games too. You won us some big games, and I think you are a starter-worthy quarterback. So whichever franchise decides to trade for this guy, he is a great influence to the team, and I appreciate his service to the Browns. We've got a couple lingering quarterbacks in the quarterback room. Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Bailey Zappi, they're still around, but those guys are not good at all. So I think this is my solution. My solution is as different as the next guy's. But my solution to this quarterback problem is, obviously we're going to have to continue to ride with Deshaun Watson. So we're going to have to hope that Deshaun Watson can, bring back some of that 2019 type of behavior, that 2019 type of style back to his game. But for the time being that he's out, and I'm talking specifically for the 2025 season, hopefully in 2026, Deshaun Watson will be back and ready to go. So I'm talking, this solution is strictly for the 2025 season. I think for the 2025 season, we should go out and, yes, draft another dude. Draft another quarterback. I think we should draft another quarterback. There are a lot of great candidates in this year's prospect and this year's draft. I think that the top candidate we should go after and get, because the Browns currently hold the second pick in the draft. We are behind the Titans right now. But I think we should go out and get Cam Ward out of Miami. He's essentially Jameis, but younger. He's younger. He's faster. He's a gunslinger, so with a gunslinging type of quarterback, there will be turnover problems, and Cam Ward has that, sure. But I think, given time, we can fix that. We can work that out of him. As he matures, he can, grow out of that. He's calm, he's cool, he's collected. Again, he's essentially Jameis, but younger. Younger, more athletic, and, he's got a lot of upside. Whereas Jameis, he's kind of around the brim of his career at this point. But I think we should go out and get Cam Ward out of Miami. We should keep some sort of veteran presence around him so that he can learn from a veteran. If not that, then he's probably going to, we're going to have to start him early. He's going to be thrown to the wolves early. And I'm not saying he can't handle it, because rookie quarterbacks as of recent years, they've shown that they can rise to the occasion and really elevate a franchise. Jaden Daniels did it. C.J. Stroud did it. Caleb, he had those great weeks before the Bears, management ultimately led to their demise this season. Rookie quarterbacks have proven that they can elevate a franchise. Now, again, there are other factors too that can help a rookie quarterback elevate a franchise. Like the Commanders have great management and they have great coaching. Bears, well, they got to get their coaching situation figured out, and they got to get their management situation figured out. And they hired Ben Johnson, and Ben Johnson, he's the former offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions for the 2024 season. That's a great hire. And I think he can do really well with Caleb Williams. So all these other teams with rookie quarterbacks are making moves, and all these other factors also help elevate a rookie quarterback to help him elevate a franchise. The Browns kind of need to mold the franchise in the same way. We kind of got to get somebody that can help, elevate Cam to help elevate our franchise. We got to kind of build around him if we do end up drafting a quarterback, because as we all know, in the NFL world, Myles Garrett has requested a trade. So now the thought of trading or drafting an edge, and obviously the top candidate is Abdul Carter out of Penn State. Now we got to have those conversations whether we draft a quarterback or draft an edge rusher. I think we should draft a quarterback. We kind of shape the team around Cam if we do end up throwing him to the Wolves early. And, we at that point we can just hope that he can elevate our franchise. Not exactly have a Jaden Daniels type of run, but certainly, get us out of the mud for right now. And again, this solution is strictly for the 2025 season, because hopefully in 2026, Deshaun Watson can come back and hopefully he can play good football again, because it's been a hot minute since he's played good football. So that's my solution to problem number one. I think we should draft Cam Ward if he's available, because again, the Titans are also in need of a quarterback. And if we get Shedeur Sanders, that's cool too. We can pretty much do the same thing that we would be doing if we get Cam. Mold the team around him, get guys to help elevate him so that he can elevate the franchise. But if Cam Ward's not available and we get Shedeur, that's cool too. I think we should still do the same. The plan is still the same. My solution is still the same. That's the solution to problem number one. Problem number two with the offensive line. I said that the offensive line is aging or injury prone more than ever, and some guys are better than others. Now, as far as the offensive line goes, I honestly think we could go out and draft another offensive lineman, but I think we should really trade. We should trade for offensive linemen, because there are going to be a lot of free agents out there in the O-line world, and I think we should honestly go out and trade for offensive linemen. Again, if we have any late round draft picks, we can spend some on an offensive lineman. We can spend a pick or two on an offensive lineman, but I honestly think we should draft and elevate any younger offensive linemen that we have now to, some starter positions. Because again, our offensive line is aging. Some of these guys might be on the brink of retirement after one or two more seasons, and we got to start getting some younger guys in here, and some guys that are actually worth big contracts. Jedrick Wills is one of those guys that we paid big money to, and he's kind of been a bust as of recent, and he's also been injury prone. So we really gotta start getting some younger guys in here. I think we should go out and trade for some free agents in the offseason, and I think honestly that's how we can fix the offensive line issue. Which leads into the solution for problem 3. Problem 2 is the offensive line. The solution to that is trade for some younger guys, trade for some free agents. That leads into the solution for problem 3, the running back and the running game dilemma as a whole. Chubb, he is a great running back. Love the dude. He's my favorite player in the NFL. Love the guy. Great dude. He had a great run in 2020, and he had a great one in 23. But it is of no secret that he is injury prone now more than ever. Ford, he is injury prone now more than ever. Foreman, same thing. Our running backs can't stay healthy, essentially, is the problem that I'm getting at. And, with a healthy offensive line, that certainly helps minimizes things. But it doesn't completely minimize, it doesn't completely destroy the fact that our running backs in and of themselves are injury prone. Having a great offensive line helps with them not getting injured, but it's still a possibility. So how do we fix the running game as a whole? Obviously, make sure our offensive line is young and healthy, and we have a strong offensive line. And really, make sure our running backs can survive more than 1 week of playing football. That's all we can really do to fix problem number 3. We got to make sure our offensive line is healthy. We got to make sure our running backs are healthy. They can take hits, and they can get back to the production that we are used to seeing as Browns fans, because again, the Browns' strength is the run game. The Browns' strength is the run game. I'm not saying the pass game is terrible, because to an extent it's not. Again, I think we could also find some more help in the pass game too, but the real cream of the crop for the Browns is the run. So we got to make sure that everybody who's involved with the run game stays healthy and is fresh. They're fresh and they can move the load that we are used to seeing them move, which leads into the solution for problem 4, which is management. Management has also been a dark area in the franchise as of late. We've had multiple coaches, multiple coaching staffs. This coaching staff, I think, is still very good. Jim Schwartz is very good. Kevin Stefanski is good. Ken Dorsey, I think he can be a little bit inconsistent from time to time, from game to game. There are some games where he calls really great, and there are some games where he doesn't, where it looks like he can't, he shouldn't be a offensive coordinator. So it's essentially inconsistent management. I mean, honestly, we should keep Stefanski, and we should keep Jim Schwartz, because those two guys are really the cream of the crop for our coaching staff, and they know what they're doing. Jim Schwartz knows what he's doing. He's produced great defenses over the years. He's coached great defenses for the Browns over the years. And Stefanski, same thing. When he has a healthy team, he's produced great offenses over the years, and he's produced a great run game and a great pass game. He hasn't really had the opportunity to showcase his good play calling, because a lot of our guys have been getting injured, or they can't stay on the field due to some other off the field issues, or we just don't have the right pieces yet, or some of the pieces that we do have, they're underdeveloped. So all those things factor in as to why our management hasn't been great as of late. Obviously, our GM, our star players wanting out, that doesn't help too. Our GM has stepped in and said that we're not going to trade Miles and he's not going to leave. But at the end of the day, it's Miles' decision, and we got to respect it. As an organization, we have to respect it. I hope Miles stays. I hope we can find some sort of solution that keeps him. It's probably not going to happen. And that, again, that raises the talk of, now, do we draft an edge or do we draft a quarterback? I think we should draft a quarterback and trade for an edge. We trade Miles for another edge. If we do end up drafting an edge, I'll understand it. It'll make some sense to me, because, the edge position, Myles Garrett is he's really the only staple on the defense, and he was the last real staple of our franchise. And if he does end up leaving this offseason, no. Props to you, Myles. As a Browns fan, I appreciate your service. You gave us many, many historic years, even though the teams that we've built around you have let you down. You're a phenomenal player, defensive player of the year, rightfully earned. You will always be a defensive player of the year, worthy guy. You're historic, but props to you, man. But it's no secret that he was one of the only staples of not only the franchise, but of that defensive front, on the defense in general. And now that he's gone, we're going to have a big gap to fill. So if we do end up drafting an edge, if we do end up taking Abdul Carter out of Penn State, it will make sense to me, and I can understand it. But I think we should trade for another edge rusher, and we should draft a quarterback. That's just me. Again, all of my solutions that I have provided and all of the problems that I have, raised, they might not be the same as the next guy. And that's okay, because, us Browns fans, all of our problems may vary. All of the problems that we see may vary in our eyes. But those are the problems that I think, upon watching the Browns 2024 season, those are the problems that I can see and that I saw upon watching the 2024 season. Those are the solutions. Will the solutions actually play out? I don't know. If they do play out, if the offseason does play out similar to the fashion that I raised, cool. I may have been right about something. But this offseason is going to be very, very critical to the Browns franchise, because as of right now, we're kind of in a reset state right now. We're kind of in a rebuilding state and a reset state. And I think the best player to bring in a situation like this would be another quarterback, and I think that quarterback should be either Shador or Cam Ward. So, with that being said, I've proposed the solutions that I have, in my opinion, come up with and have seen. I've addressed the four biggest problems that I have seen upon watching and reflecting on the 2024 Cleveland Browns season. Now let's talk about some of the competition. Let's talk about the competition for a quick minute. The AFC North is a very tough division. Very tough division. Superstars all around on every team. So let's talk about it. I'm not going to talk about, the solutions for these teams, but I'm going to bring up, some of the needs that I think our rivals should focus on. Let's start with the Ravens. We know the Ravens are championship caliber, they're playoff caliber, and arguably with some of the teams that they've had over recent years, they are Super Bowl caliber. But we know that Patrick Mahomes exists, and we know the Ravens are missing they're missing a piece, and they're also missing Lamar getting over the hump, him actually having an MVP caliber type of performance in the playoffs. But I think there's a piece defensively that the Ravens are missing, and that piece is an edge rusher. The Ravens don't really have a proven edge rusher. Now, do I think Myles Garrett can fill those shoes? Yes. As a Browns fan, I would hate to see it, and I don't want to see it. I would hate to wake up one day and see Myles Garrett get traded to the Ravens. But I think from what I've seen and from what I've watched as a Browns fan, because I've watched games from the Steelers and the Ravens and the Bengals, and I think the Ravens' biggest need to help Lamar get over the hump is find a proven edge rusher. Somebody like Myles. I'm not saying that that trade needs to happen, and I would hate to see it. But I'm saying that the Ravens do need to find somebody of Myles Garrett's caliber, if not better. Because I think the edge rushing position is the Ravens' biggest weak spot on defense, and I think that's one of the team's biggest needs. They need a proven edge rusher, and I think somebody of Myles Garrett's caliber can do it. Again, I'm not condoning that the Browns and the Ravens pick up the phone and be like, hey, we want Myles. And the Browns, with the foolish management, agree to that. I would hate to wake up and see the news that happens. But I'm saying, Ravens, you definitely need to pick up the phone on somebody that has a defensive player of the year caliber edge rusher. And you need to make that call. That, in my opinion, is the Ravens' biggest need, is finding an edge rusher. Steelers. The Steelers, well, they're kind of in an odd situation because they make the playoffs every year, and that's cool, but they don't get anywhere. And I think Steelers fans can agree with me when I say this, that making the playoffs and losing every year doesn't exactly mean much. I think Steelers fans want to get over the wild card. They want to be able to compete for a Super Bowl. Now, I'm not going to say that, management is the biggest problem for the Steelers, but I think they should definitely consider, a new coaching staff or maybe move away from Mike Tomlin. They need to have those types of conversations for sure. I'm not saying management is the biggest problem for the Steelers, but I think it's something that needs to be talked about in the Steelers front office. In my opinion, the Steelers' biggest problem is also the quarterback position. They have Justin Fields, and Russell Wilson is going to be a free agent, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Steelers fans, correct me if I'm wrong, but Russell Wilson is going to be a free agent, which means they're going to have to rock with either Russ, they're going to have to sign with Russ again, or they're going to have to rock with Justin Fields. And Justin Fields, I think, is a phenomenal athlete. I think he's athletic. And I think with given a chance, he can really elevate the Steelers' offense. And he kind of showed that when he had the early start over Russell Wilson in the early stages of the season, of the 2024 season. He kind of showed that he can lead the Steelers to victories, to the dubs. And then the Steelers obviously moved off of him, and they kind of used him as a secondary quarterback to come in and, run the run plays, the quarterback sneaks and whatnot. But I think if he's actually given a chance, if the Steelers decide to give him a chance and they move away from Russ, I think that Justin Fields can do it. He can be that guy for the Steelers. He's athletic enough to do so, and I think they can work all the nicks and knacks about him out of him. If they don't decide to rock with either, then they're probably better off drafting a dude or trading for, a veteran quarterback that they believe can get the job done, whether that be Aaron Rodgers or not, because we know that the Jets are also looking to move away from Aaron Rodgers. Sam Darnold is also going to be a free agent. If the Steelers end up waiting another year and waiting a year out with Justin Fields, or if they end up waiting a year out with Russ, Matt Stafford is going to be available. So there are veteran guys that are on the come up to being free agents. And there are, I think they got a guy that can lead the team in Justin Fields. But if they don't decide to go with any of those two guys that they have right now, then I think they're better off just looking into free agency and trading for a guy. Or I think they should just draft a guy. But I think management is a concern that they need to look into, in my opinion. But I think the biggest concern that they need to look into is the quarterback position, because like the Browns, as of recent, the Steelers haven't really had a decent quarterback in a while. And last but not least, the Bengals. Well, we now know that there's wide receiver problems because T. Higgins is going to go, and they're essentially held at gunpoint to pay Jamar Chase the big bag. Jamar Chase is due for a big bag, and I think it is rightfully deserved. He is a Triple Crown winner. He should have won Offensive Player of the Year. He was in the running for it. But I think he's worthy of a big bag. Is he going to get it? Who knows? This offseason is kind of critical for the Bengals as well. If they look into possibly cutting Jamar Chase's contract down so that they can afford T. Higgins, that's going to be a big move. I know Joe and Jamar Chase have been verbal about T. Higgins, and they love the guy and they want him to stay. But it is no secret that there are wide receiver problems, and the Bengals need to address that in some way, shape, or form. However, I said early on, before the playoffs started, I don't know if you guys remember this, that video was still out. But in my playoff prediction video, I said that the Bengals defense was atrocious, and it is atrocious, and they need to look into fixing it. I know there are wide receiver problems right now with the Bengals, but I think the Bengals need to fix the defense. They got to fix the defense in some way, shape, or form. Trey Hendrickson is really the only golden boy on that defense, and he needs help badly because he's a defensive player of the year in the making. And if the Bengals were just decent for once on defense, he'd probably win one, if not make the playoffs. Again, the Bengals finished 9-8. They missed the playoffs. But I think the defense needs to be improved. They need to revamp the defense heavily. I understand there are receiver questions, contract questions are being raised in the Bengals front office, and all those things will need to be addressed. But I think the defense needs to be the area of attention for the Bengals most. That is what I think is the biggest issue for the Bengals defense. Obviously, the receiver problem is a thing now, too. They got to address that somehow in some way, shape, or form. But I think that defense, they got to stick to the defense. They got to look at it. Because if that same defense comes back, then they could be looking at 8-9, if not worse. Or if best case scenario, they go 9-8 again. And I don't think Bengals fans want to go 9-8 again. Although there are receiver questions and there are contract questions in the air for the Bengals, I think they need to stick true to the defense, and they got to fix that defense. They got to fix that defense. With that being said, this has been Season 2, Episode 4, the Life's Playbook podcast. If you like the show, and if you are a general fan of the show and you want to see the show grow to new heights, I encourage you to like and subscribe under the video. It is greatly appreciated. Comment down below if you are a fan of the Steelers, Ravens, or Bengals. Comment down below on what you think your team's biggest issue is and the solution that you have for that issue. If you're a Browns fan, let me know in the comments what you guys think are the biggest issues for the Cleveland Browns and how we should go about fixing those issues. With that being said, I will catch you guys episode 5 and dive a little more into this exact same conversation, although talking about other guys, because there are other players out there that are free agents, and where will those players land? And there are players out there that are on the verge of being traded, and some of the landing spots that I think those players should go to. So, with that being said, I'll catch you guys Sunday for episode 5, season 2 of the show. Again, comment down below on what you think. Like and subscribe. It is greatly appreciated. Till then, peace out.